right, welcome back to another episode of the Karter Cast. I'm your host, Karter Baughan. With me, as always, Connor Sparrow, and it's football season. It's August. We're recording Wednesday, August 2nd, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Football starts tomorrow. We have the NFL preseason. I know we talked about it in our Sports Days draft, Dylan. We have football starting tomorrow, but it's not real football. It gets you going the first quarter, and you're like, oh, yeah. And then the second quarter, you're like, okay, no, enough of this. You take the under, and you don't watch the rest of the game. But we have Dylan back on. He's going to be on all the time now with football coming on. We have our college football preview week, Monday through Friday. Every single day will be a conference preview show, 20, 25, 30 minutes each show. First off, Dylan, welcome back. It's football.
It is so great to be here. I really tried to emphasize, and this is going to sound like very zen of me. I'm not a very zen guy. But every year, I'm always looking forward to the next thing. So winter's around, I'm like, oh, I can't wait for summer. I've really tried to live in the moment this summer and be like, you know, the Reds are good, love golfing, all this stuff. But August 2nd is when we're recording, and I'm just ready for football. I'm ready for the crisp in the air. I'm ready to sit on the couch all day, and I'm ready to watch college football. I'm ready to watch the NFL.
Yeah. No, we need it bad. I need it bad. I'm done. I've watched my fair share of Major League Soccer. I've watched my fair share of preseason soccer, NBA Summer League. Connor, that was a death trap.
That was a doozy. That was a doozy.
Yeah, no, but we're back. Football's back. We're talking SEC today, as you can see if you're already watching. You're seeing. That's why you clicked on it. So, SEC conference preview. We're going to start it off. I'm going to read through the SEC odds, and then we're going to talk about our winners, who we think is overrated, who our sleeper/underrated team is, and then we'll close with our favorite bets or other teams we like in this conference. All good?
Sounds good.
I love it.
All right. Let's run it. All right, odds to win the SEC. This is a consensus odds from Action Network, so it could be better or worse odds. This is the average between the sports books that Action provides. So we start off, Georgia is minus 110 to win the SEC, Bama plus 290, LSU plus 450. So you put $10, you win $45. Texas A&M 13-1, Tennessee 16-1, Ole Miss 45-1. Auburn and Florida 75-1, South Carolina 93-1, and the rest of them are 100-1 or more. Vanderbilt 50-1. You might even
500-1.
Yeah, or 500-1. You might be even be able to find 1,000-1. It's that bad. So those are the SEC odds. You guys may have a pick you like. We're not going to talk about who we like to bet on or who we think we're going to bet on this team. It's who you're picking. These are just a consensus to give you an idea who's been preseason favored, who Vegas likes. We're going to start off with you, Connor. Who do you think wins the SEC?
Yeah, so I dug into the SEC, a few days ago, starting prep for this. I want to pick someone sexy. I want to pick an LSU. I want to pick an Ole Miss. I want to pick a Kentucky. I want some bang for my buck. But the more I looked into it, I think I have to go right here, square, UGA, to win the conference. I mean, I don't see a team that's really coming out that's going to beat them. I know it's tough. They're going for their third straight national championship. I was looking it up earlier. Georgia would be the first three-peat national champion since Minnesota in 1934 through 1936. I'm not saying they're going to win the national championship, but, man, 29 wins over the last 2 years, tied for the most in college football history. They got production coming back. I know there's a change at quarterback. I don't see a team in the SEC beating them this year. There's too many question marks around Alabama. We'll go over that. I like Georgia to win the conference. Put a gun to my head. Give me Georgia.
1930s Minnesota, that just sounds like hard-nosed football. Like
that's something you would like. You would love that.
Yeah, that's Big Ten football.
That gets me pumped for the Big Ten preview later. But, yeah, I've always been wrong about Georgia. I even tried last year to say they weren't going to be as good, and they go and win a national championship. And, like you said, Connor, a lot of question marks at quarterback. I think they're like 80th in terms of returning production, but that's better than what they had last year, and they went out and won a national championship. So the only difference would be they returned their quarterback last year. So
right.
It's going to be tough to tell. I mean, it's hard to go against what's happened for the last 2 years, but it's interesting. It is interesting. I don't know if I'd pick Georgia. I think I got all my notes right here.
I'll touch on Georgia real quick before you keep going because
I got a rebuttal too. Go ahead, Carter.
Okay, but because Georgia does lose a lot of guys. Yes, they bring in mega 5 stars all the time, so it's kind of like the Duke one and dones where it's rinse and repeat. But you do lose a big chunk of that defense that was elite. Stetson Bennett, yes, you can say he's an average quarterback or he wasn't that great, that wasn't that special, but Stetson Bennett did just keep things in check. He got the things done. Nothing was too crazy. He didn't make the unnecessary mistakes, and he made the big play when it was needed. Yes, they have Brock Bowers back. Yes, they have Ladd McConkey back, who's the most underrated receiver in college football by all means. But the change at quarterback, that is a big deal.
Here's my rebuttal to that, Karter, about the quarterback. I do think it's a big deal. How about this, though? Georgia's offensive line this year, they're returning 3 starters, and the O-line last year was 4th in sacks allowed, 2nd in tackles for loss allowed, and Georgia rushed for 205 yards a game. So I know there's going to be questions at the quarterback, but the O-line looks pretty consistent. The running back's going to be fine. I know they lost some production, but, man, if they can run the ball, I don't think the quarterback is probably going to be Carson Beck. I don't think he's going to be asked to do too much. That's why I'm picking them to win. I think they'll be able to dictate game clock, time of possession. I like Georgia to win the conference this year.
The other thing with Georgia, too, is that the quarterback position is they don't – obviously, it's Carson Beck. It looks like you don't know who's actually going to be the starter, blah, blah, blah. Every year it's a Georgia quarterback controversy except last year.
Right.
But the good thing for Georgia is they have 2 games to figure it out. You got UT Martin and Ball State. You can figure it out in those games. Get those 2 guys a run and see who's better.
And I will say – new offensive coordinator Mike Bobo coming back. He had a stint in Georgia in the late 2000s. He's worked with good Georgia quarterbacks, Aaron Murray, Matthew Stafford. He's had some rough years at Colorado State recently, but he's had a proven success record at Georgia. The recency of what he's done concerns me a little bit, but it's not like you're bringing in a brand new guy who doesn't know what he's doing. So I don't think there's going to be as much drop-off as maybe the loss of production may want us to believe.
They did kind of prove that they don't need a superstar quarterback to win games either the last 2 years. Because like you said, Stetson just kind of got it done. He wasn't a superstar by any means, even though those videos are looking pretty good out of Rams camp. But, they proved they don't need a Bryce Young to win a national championship, let alone their conference. So, and they're returning Brock Bowers, aren't they? He's back.
Yeah, Bowers is back. Yep.
They're going to be tough to beat. I will say that. It's going to be tough. And I don't want to be wrong about them again.
Now,
their schedule's a cakewalk.
Yeah, now with all this being said, I had to rebuttal Connor. I'm picking Georgia to win the SEC too. I think Georgia, the schedule's just too easy. The schedule is so easy for Georgia.
Don't overthink it.
UT Martin, Ball State, home South Carolina, home UAB. Your only road games are at Auburn with a coaching change with Hugh Freeze. They may be better. Who knows? It's going to be a tough game regardless. But then it's at Vandy, easy win. At Tennessee. Tennessee's not the same as they were last year. Yes, they may be good, but they're not as good as they were last year. And at Georgia Tech, who stinks. So you have 2, above average road games, I guess you could say. The rest are all at home. They don't have to play at Bama. Their non-conference is super easy. It's a cakewalk. At worst, they go 11-1, and then they're in the SEC title game.
And I want to stress, I'm not locking them in as a three-peat national champion. This is just to win the SEC, and I think it's a smart play. If we might be square. Dylan, you're going to laugh at us, and you're going to take some plus money, and that's fine. But I think we're going to be – that's fine.
Oh, I'm not going to bet it. I'm not going to bet it at all. But I do think I think they're going to win it.
Yeah.
What is going to be different about the Tennessee team this year than last year?
Hendon Hooker. It's that simple.
Joe Milton has the exact same skill set as Hendon Hooker.
He's had chances, though. Joe Milton's had chances.
Well, he got benched at Michigan for Cade after it was COVID year. Are we counting COVID year? People were dying.
We don't discount COVID year. We don't discount that.
Karter?
I'm going to remember that when we talk about the Pac-12. When we talk about the Pac-12 next week, Dylan, I'm going to remember that. The COVID year doesn't count because also Hendon Hooker was so good. They lose Jalen Hyatt too.
Cedric Tillman's gone too. Both their top receivers are gone.
Tennessee is second in returning offensive production, so they did lose those guys. But all the guys, Squirrel White, he had and that's a very great football name. But he had a great end of the year. I hear what you're saying, and I would have my reservations. Hendon Hooker was the Heisman winner had he not got injured. Let's be honest. And
agreed.
It's tough to go from that to Joe Milton, but Joe Milton is a quarterback that's in those top 4, top 5 teams to win the SEC that he started, right? And I guess you could say the same for LSU's quarterback, but I would take Tennessee before I'd take LSU. Now their defense is still going to be bad. They're 30th in returning production on their on the defensive side of the ball, which leads me to a question. Does it matter?
I don't think it matters. Oh, I beat you to it.
Does it matter if you're returning production and it was bad last year? Is that a good thing to return your production?
I will give you a perfect example of why this is the dumbest thing on planet Earth. Do you guys remember, I believe it was 2019, North Carolina. Going into 2020, the hype was out of control.
Oh, of course.
Or I think it was 2020 going into 21, that first Virginia Tech game, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that Virginia Tech game going into 21. The hype for Carolina was insane, and everybody had their questions. They were like, oh, Carolina, Sam Howell's awesome, but, they return the offensive line. They have 95% of their offensive line coming back and their defense coming back. They're going to get better. No, just because they're coming back does not mean they get better at all.
Virginia Tech started playing Enter Sandman, and the crowd was going crazy week 1, and I was sitting there, I was like, oh, we are screwed. I was terrified.
If the Charlotte Hornets keep returning the same players every year, we're going to keep missing the playoffs. It doesn't mean you're all of a sudden going to magically become national champions.
They'll returning production. You'll get marginally better, sure, like those individual guys, but if there's no team success, then how far are you really going to go compared to the other teams in the conference? That's the perfect example of Carolina. They can have all the 5-star recruiting classes in the world, return all these starters, former 4-stars. If they don't produce, it doesn't lead to wins. And, we can talk about some of the transfers. Tony Grimes is out of there, Keyshawn Silver. A lot of 5-stars transferred to SEC schools, different conferences. It's for a reason.
But, Dylan, great question.
With the Tennessee talk before we hop off that, I will bet them to win the SEC East.
Oh no.
I will take Joe Milton against a Georgia quarterback that hasn't started.
So I'm seeing those odds at 5-1.
Yes, that will definitely be bet. And I understand you guys are probably like, I'm a Tennessee fan. If you listened last year, the guy's just a Tennessee fan. I like my money. I mean, I am a fan, but I'm not going to bet on them if I didn't think it would actually win. So I'm going Tennessee to win the SEC East, and that's a legitimate bet I'm going to make.
I mean, honestly, I don't hate that just because essentially you're betting Tennessee at 5-1 against Georgia.
Yep.
Yeah.
It just basically in that game. But the other thing is where I get kind of scared with that. We can keep talking Tennessee real quick. Their win total's 9.5 for the season. They have a sneaky, difficult schedule. I mean, obviously, no SEC schedule's easy. UTSA is going to be a game to put on your calendar, Dylan. I know I texted you. Watch out for the Roadrunners. A little meet action going on.
I feel like you made that like a game of the decade last year, something with UTSA, and they just lost.
No, I think they won. I think they hit.
They also ruined a couple podcast parlays for us, if I do remember correctly.
They definitely ruined a podcast parlay because I think my game of the decade hit with, I think it was against Army. I think it was against I had the money line against Army or like -2, and it cashed like double overtime. It was ridiculous. That game was ridiculous. But anyhow, yes, I'm big on UTSA. Just precursor to week 4 of college football, I will be betting UTSA money line against Tennessee. Just
how about this for Tennessee though, Dylan? Win total's 9.5, so that entails they're only going to lose to Bama and Georgia, and that's it. That's the only 2 losses they can have. You don't think they get upset by a Kentucky or an A&M?
Definitely not Kentucky.
South Carolina.
Oh boy,
a little worried about Missouri. If you want me to be honest, I think they could sneakily be a team that finds their way into the middle or top of the pack of the SEC.
What about South Carolina? South Carolina can't beat y'all last year.
Yeah, but that was right after Hendon Hooker got injured. Like Hooker wasn't even playing. So
no, he played in that game.
He did?
That's the game. Yeah, he got hurt in the second half of that game.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
And they were already down by like 400 points though, so it didn't matter.
I don't know. I'm not worried about it. Was it? Yeah, I was at South Carolina. I'm not worried. Honestly, I think we could take one from either Alabama or Georgia again this year. I'm saying we. I shouldn't say we when I'm talking about analysis. Tennessee should take one from Alabama or Georgia.
So, real quick to close off the winter talk, who do you have winning the SEC? Who are you
I'll
picking?
go LSU.
Okay. Why LSU?
They're returning a lot of their offensive line, which was actually pretty decent last year. I'm bad with names, guys. Quarterback name?
James
Daniels. I mean, he was amazing, especially towards the end of last year. And if he can come back and he can stay healthy, I think they could do it. And Brian Kelly, we gave Brian Kelly a lot of crap when he took over this LSU team. I mean, the fake accent, that's all you really needed to hear.
Family.
But at the end of the day, he is a great coach. So is this his second or third year?
Second year. I have a little notes on Brian Kelly. So his first 3 seasons with teams or whatever. So Central Michigan back in the mid-2000s, he went 4-7 his first year, 6-5 his second year, and then 9-4 his third year. He's eerily similar to Matt Rule, by the way. And then his first year at Cincinnati, 10-3, then 11-3, then 12-1. Notre Dame, 8-5, 8-5, then 12-1. He usually pops off in that third year. I don't know if we're going to see that same pop the next year. Obviously, different circumstances because yes, this team's probably better than that, first to second year Notre Dame team, but this is a tough conference. And going back, let's look at their schedule real quick. They have the neutral game in Orlando against Florida State. Do you guys remember that Georgia-Clemson game a couple years ago that started Georgia's national championship run their first year? Right, 2 years ago. It was like 6-9 in Charlotte. They played at the Panther Stadium.
Yeah.
And Georgia barely won. That's going to be very similar to this LSU-FSU game, week 1. The loser of that game is going to hurt them, and the winner of that game is going to push that momentum so far forward and give them the confidence going forward.
I like that take. I don't think LSU's a bad pick at all. I've actually included them in one of my bets we'll give out later. It's just hard to pick him to win the whole conference, like I said. Jaden Daniels is going to be, he's going to be a lot of people's Heisman pick. LSU is going to be a popular team to bet on. I just don't know.
I don't think it's hard to bet on them. It's just, it basically comes down to how do you feel against them versus Alabama.
Yeah. But they've proven they could take care of them. That was with Bryce Young at quarterback. Now we don't even really know who we're going to get at quarterback this year for Alabama.
We don't know who we're getting at quarterback at Alabama. You know everything about LSU. You know who their top receiver is going to be. They have guys who are healthy now on defense too, NFL guys, and their quarterback is the sexy Heisman pick this year too.
LSU is top 10 in returning production overall too. So I mean, you kind of know what you're getting with LSU, and if you like a little bit of certainty, that's the team to pick.
And last season they went 10-4, so. Obviously, that includes some other games in there as well. Did they win their bowl game? I can't remember.
Oof, I don't know.
I'll get stats department on it, but Connor, go ahead.
Yeah, so just while we're on the topic of LSU, Dylan, I do not have them to win the conference. However, I do have them plus 200 to win the SEC West. That is one of my bets I was going to give out. I really think this is a bet to make if you believe Alabama has as many question marks as I do. I think we can maybe transition to a little Alabama talk right now. You're looking at Alabama, guys. I did a little research here. Go ahead, Karter.
Real quick, LSU Cheez-It Bowl champs. They beat. I now remember this game. They beat Purdue 63-7. So a little TCU Georgia action right there. So anyhow, move on to Alabama though.
Yeah. So perfect transition. This is basically a bet against Alabama to win the SEC division here. I did a little research here. Dylan, you'll be proud of this. Bryce Young's wins above replacement stat last year, highest among any SEC quarterbacks. Basically, that means he did the most to make his team win. I looked it up also what it means. It compares the contributions and statistics to those of an average replacement player. So basically, Bryce Young was responsible for a lot of Alabama's good things last year. None of the other 3 quarterbacks on the roster will be nearly as good as him. Who's going to start? Everybody says Milroe. I've heard Ty Simpson as the edge coming out of camp. Last stat I'll give here, Milroe had 8 turnover-worthy plays last year on 70 dropbacks total. I'm just saying, I don't know if he's got it in place to compete for Alabama. I think LSU to win the SEC West here at plus 200. I think it's a pretty good bet. I like that more than them to win the conference.
Alabama is an interesting one to me because of the whole quarterback situation, and also the last 2 years they've committed almost 30 more penalty yards per game when they're playing away, and that, to me, it supersedes talent. That is a discipline thing that starts from the top. And that's not, obviously, Saban is Saban, but there are issues there. When they're away, they commit a lot more penalties than they do when they're at home. The caveat to that would be their away games are not that hard this year. So yeah. I don't have any bets on Alabama. I would expect them to have a down year. I just don't know what that down year looks like quite yet. Is that 10-2?
Yeah.
Is that Alabama's still going to Alabama, but there are some issues there.
So their win totals at 10.5. Last season they went 11-2. The biggest problem with the quarterback controversy, going back to Georgia, where they're trying to figure out their quarterback as well, they have that easy schedule to go into. Alabama, yes, they have Middle Tennessee State week 1. Texas week 2. We saw last year Texas gave them trouble in Austin. Now they're playing in Alabama. Yes, that's better, but they still aren't confident in their quarterback. Texas knows who they are. They have their quarterback in Quinn Ewers. They're going to come in. They're the big favorite in the Big 12. That's going to be the game that kind of decides Alabama's season. Like, I know we say that in college, like you should week 1, week 2 doesn't define who you are as a team. But when you're at high stakes as this, where you get 1-2 games is the difference in your season, it really does. That Texas game will determine a big chunk of their season.
There's just too many question marks for me to feel confident about this Bama team. A lot of moving parts on the O-line, 3 transfers. Dylan, you'll love this stat too. I wrote down penalty problem in all caps. Almost 8 per game last year, 17 in the Tennessee loss, 15 in the close Texas win. Also, side note, Kool-Aid McKinstry, their starting cornerback, sneaky best name in college football. Kool-Aid McKinstry.
That's pretty good.
Is Storm Duck still in the
He is.
playing
He
college
transferred.
football?
He transferred.
Storm Duck.
But yeah, Kool-Aid McKinstry's a good one. I don't know. I wrote down Texas game's going to be huge for the season outlook. I agree. You're going to know a lot by that game. That can make or break their season that early.
And then they got LSU at home. At Texas A&M is never an easy game. They got to go play at Mississippi State with the Cowbells. That's annoying to watch on TV. Does
it feel like they're missing that marquee Alabama star wide receiver that we've gotten so accustomed to seeing? They didn't have it last year, and I don't even think they have it again this year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see. I mean, it feels like someone pops up though. It feels like someone's always going to pop up, and also like we say all this right now, but then at the end of the day, it's like the Bill Belichick argument. Like, do you really feel comfortable betting against Nick Saban?
Right, and that's why I'm not going to touch the win total. I just think a sprinkle on LSU to win that division, it's not a bad bet.
Yeah, if you went either way on that win total, I would. It looks like 10 or 11.
Yeah,
I don't think they go to 9. I would be kind of surprised if they had only 9 wins. If that Texas game goes south, then maybe.
Well, if you think Alabama's going under the win total, I think it's a little juiced right now for the under. Just bet LSU to win the division. I think that's just about the same bet.
Unless you like Texas A&M.
Well, yeah, I guess so.
Unless you like Texas A&M. All right, well, we kind of discussed like the top 3 so far. Let's talk about the most overrated teams you have coming into this season. So, teams you're like, I just don't understand why their win total's this high, or why even people are like looking at them. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be the Georgias where they're that high. It can be someone who's in the middle of the pack, and you're like, this team is going to be 3-9 type deal.
Yeah, Dylan, you want to go first here?
I can go first if you don't want to, Dylan.
I can, and I'm going to do
a similar pick.
I don't know. I don't want to do it to myself again, but predicting Georgia at 11.5 wins, not knowing who's going to play quarterback, like that is one of the biggest things for me. And you'll hear it when we do the Big Ten. I'll say it about Ohio State. If you don't know who the quarterback is, or you're bringing in somebody that hasn't started at quarterback at this level, there's a lot of questions to be had. And math lesson. We're going to actually hold on a second.
What?
We have our bell-shaped curve right here. So right
perfect.
Here, the sports books are saying 11.5 wins right here. But if you have a quarterback that isn't familiar with the scheme, hasn't started a game before, that takes this bell-shaped curve and it just spreads it out. So the likeliness of having 13 wins is a lot more likely. You could get a really good guy, or the likeliness of having 7 wins. It opens up this tail. So instead of having a real tight dispersion where they might get really close to 11.5 wins, if you had Stetson Bennett, it widens it, and you're either going to get over it or under it, more likely. So with that being said, I don't like the uncertainty that it provides when you have a quarterback that hasn't started before.
Nice. I didn't think I was going to math class today.
I enjoyed that.
So you think Georgia's a little overhyped this year?
I would say if I had to pick a team, I would go with Georgia.
I agree with your point there, and that's why I was deciding I'm not going to bet Georgia's win total. I will not bet Georgia's win total. I think they do have a good chance to lose at least one game. That's why I like them to win the conference more, because they can lose one game, get into the title game, and then blow out whoever's in the SEC championship. That's why I like Georgia to win the conference at -110 a lot better than their win total.
I like that too. I agree with Connor there. The problem is with all of this is their schedule is so easy. They're just better than these teams, especially even in the SEC. They're in the the SEC East. Like, it's so much easier on that side. They play Kentucky at home. They play at Vandy. Florida stinks this year. Missouri's going to be a sketchy game. It was a sketchy game last year in that first half. It'll be a sketchy game this year, but they're going to get it done. At Tennessee, Georgia Tech. Like, the schedule's so easy where I don't see them as a lock for the national championship as we've become accustomed to at Georgia. But 11, 12 wins, it's around there. With the overrated part, do you guys see someone that's just like, hey, this team's like 2-3 wins off their win total or above their I think, let's say Alabama, for example. Alabama's 10.5 wins, and you're like, I don't understand why they should be 7.5, 8.5 wins, not 10.5.
Well, Carter, it sounds like you have one.
I have a decent. I have a pick. I'll say it. Kentucky.
Yes.
Really?
I'm glad you said it.
Really?
I'm glad you said it.
Why? Why does every single person in this country talk themselves into Devin Leary being a good quarterback? It makes no sense to me. He is everyone's like, he is an NFL quarterback, and every State fan listening to this is going to get their freaking feelings hurt, whatever. But let's look at last year. Last year they had Will Levis, who was a potential first-round pick in the NFL draft. They only went 7-6. This year they have to play at Georgia. They got to play Tennessee. They got to play Bama. They got to play at South Carolina. They got to play at Louisville. Rivalry game. It's still a difficult game. At Mississippi State. They don't have a lot of weapons. Yes, their first 4 games are very easy. But there's a real world where they start the season 4-0, and then they finish the season 5-7.
Okay, I actually want to rebuttal on this one. I don't agree with that at all. I think Kentucky can get to 7 wins. I really do. Let me back it up. O-line sucked last year. It's no surprise. I wasn't a Will Levis fan. God, I would have died if the Panthers drafted Will Levis. But the O-line sucked. Both the tackle spots were filled with transfer portal guys this year, solid transfer portal guys. Vanderbilt, 1,000-yard rusher, Ray Davis coming in to start at running back. Sure, maybe it's not the marquee guy. Devin Leary, as much as I hate NC State, he can air the ball out. If he stays healthy and they can protect him, they got their top 5 wide receiver / tight end guys back from last year.
But that's the other thing. You said the O-line stinks, but then all of a sudden you're going to say, oh, they stunk, they stink, they whatever. They're not great. It's not enough. It's not.
It's nothing to write home about to your mom. It's nothing to write home about. It's not.
Exactly. Okay, we say that, and then you're like, oh, if Devin Leary stays healthy. But Devin Leary has not stayed healthy for a full season once in his career.
That is also fair. Go ahead, Dylan.
Having a 1,000-yard running back doesn't matter if your line's bad, and also having a 1,000-yard running back isn't that impressive when the team he came from rushed 62% on standard downs. So
thank you. And the quarterback sucked at Vanderbilt.
Kentucky's defense last year
is all right.
Allowed just 19 points a game and only 311 yards per game in 2022. Former number 1 ranked high school recruit, UNC guy, Keyshawn Silver, who is overhyped, I will say, but he was the number 1 player in the state coming into last year, starting on the D-line for him. I just don't think they're going to be as bad as you guys say. 7 wins is not going to be insanely hard to get. They should be 4-0 going into the Florida game. They could win that one. That'll be a toss-up. That's 5-0 right there. Missouri, Mississippi State, South Carolina, Louisville. Those are all winnable games. If you win 3 of those, that puts you at 7 wins right there. I don't think it's absurd that their win total is 6.5. I've actually seen it up to 7 on DraftKings recently, and 6.5 is crazy juiced. If you're looking at the schedule, it's not that hard. It's not hard for me to get up to 7 wins on Kentucky's schedule, guys.
I think everyone's going to fall in love with the Devin Leary experience after the at Vanderbilt game, and everyone's going to be like, this Kentucky team, they're legit, and then they might even beat Florida. Let's say they're 5-0 going into the Georgia game, and they're going to have that number 12 ranking next to them, and CBS gets to say, Georgia, Kentucky on CBS, 12 versus 1, and Kentucky
they'll get smoked.
loses by 5,000, and
Yeah, they'll
that
get smoked.
spirals into a downward season where Devin Leary gets hurt, and then they lose the rest of their games. I genuinely could see them finishing the rest of the season. I could see them losing the rest of the season after the Florida game. I mean, they'd probably beat Louisville.
If they are 5-0 going into that Georgia game, you don't think they could beat Louisville and then one of South Carolina or Mississippi State or Missouri?
Okay,
that's 7 wins.
Okay, but 5-0 doesn't matter when you're playing Ball State, Eastern Kentucky, Akron, and Vanderbilt.
I'm not picking them to win the conference.
But that's like talking about the BYU Zach Wilson COVID year when they were like 8-0, and they're like, we beat Navy, we beat Western Kentucky, we beat the School of the Blind.
5 wins is 5 wins when I'm betting the win total. If they get 5 wins, 10-5, so be it.
But I don't think they're going to get to that 7 mark. That's what I'm saying, because the second half of the schedule is so hard.
I think there's a really solid chance they finish 7-5, and that's over the 6.5 mark. I'm going to bet. Yeah, I'm here.
Dylan,
that's fine.
Going over under, or are you
that's
staying?
Fine.
You staying away?
I would go under, and I don't have any notes for it or anything, but I do have it written down as one of my bets. Under 6.5, plus 130. Again, losing a quarterback, that's not a great situation to be in. Their defense was fine. They gave up 44 points to Tennessee, and I don't even know. That was Hendon Hooker still, but. I'm not too big on it. And there are teams in the middle of the pack of the SEC. When I was looking through this, like Florida is another one to me. I don't know if they're going to be that good. Arkansas, I think, will be fine. KJ Jefferson did a pretty good job. But you have that chunk of the SEC. Their win totals are all around like 5 to 7. And it's really, you got to sort through the good and the bad there and figure out who's going to come out on the middle side of that, or the upper side of that middle and the lower side of that middle. Kentucky was lower side of the middle for me.
Clip this. I think Kentucky has a better record than Missouri this year.
That's not saying it.
Both of you guys are going to be high on Missouri. You've been talking up Missouri.
I have not been talking up Missouri. I didn't say anything about Missouri. I have nothing on Missouri. I genuinely have not. I don't have one thing. I'm looking at their schedule right now. They'll probably be 6-6 and playing like the freaking Ballsack Bowl. Like, who cares?
Give me Kentucky over 6.5.
No.
Brady Cook looked good last year at the end of the year for Missouri. That's all I got to say.
He did.
He looked good.
Oh, we lost Connor.
He got mad and left.
He got
Wildcat slander.
He couldn't handle it. He couldn't handle it. He couldn't handle it. He got so mad he couldn't handle the Kentucky. All right, let's transition now. We're going to do underrated teams we like. So teams we were like, okay, this win total's off. This win total doesn't make any sense. For example, like we just talked about Kentucky, Connor's like, there's no way they have to make it to 7 wins. Devin Leary's the next Russell Wilson.
I can't believe I just defended Devin Leary like that. I can't believe that because I can't stand him. But here we are.
You know what I love before we get into the underrated thing is that the Kentucky fans that are watching this, they're gonna see me wearing the Duke hat and they're just seething right now. Just like, he just hates Kentucky. He doesn't like us.
He must think Coach K's better than Coach Cal.
You have your underrated team. Let us know who it is.
I think 3.5 wins. There's one team in the SEC that has a 3.5 win total, Vanderbilt, and I don't think that they're going to come in and win the conference, win their division or whatever. But 3.5 wins is pretty disrespectful for a team that won 5 games last year with quarterback troubles. Their starting quarterback got injured. That's when they brought Swan in. He wasn't great, but they worked with what they had. And like I said before when we were talking about the Vanderbilt running back that transferred to Kentucky, he was a 1,000-yard rusher. It doesn't mean a whole lot when you're rushing on 62% of your standard downs. But I think that they had that game plan in place because of the uncertainty at quarterback. They didn't know what they were getting. They didn't want to take shots down the field because they're higher upside, sure, but lower downside. So just as we were talking about that bell curve, when you have a quarterback in that's has some experience, he has. They might be more willing to take risks this year. It does widen the possibility of outcomes. And when your win total is set at 3, it's going to get widened more.
3.5.
Thank you.
That's a big distinction here.
When it's moved to 3.5, it really widens that tail for over. So I think they're going to take more risks this year. like being on the opposite of everybody, and they're kind of getting like the bad team treatment. Like, oh, Vanderbilt isn't anything. So, Kansas was like that. Like, I think last year, no one thought Kansas was going to do anything, and they ended up being decent.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to get on the Vandy train before everybody else does, and I'll take their over win total 3.5.
My issue with this is you look at the schedule, they have to go 4-0 to hit this win total, it seems like, because then the SEC schedule, I mean, they're not better than any of these SEC teams. Yes, you can win on any given day, but they play home Kentucky, home Missouri, at Florida. If that was home Florida, I would say they have a chance, but at Florida, that's going to be tough. Georgia, no. At Ole Miss, Auburn at home, at South Carolina.
South Carolina, maybe.
At Tennessee. I don't think at South Carolina.
You don't think South Carolina's maybe mailed it in by then? You know, maybe Spencer Rattler's thrown 20 interceptions by that point.
I think that's very possible, but I still think they beat Vandy comfortably.
Yeah.
And then looking at last season, you said they won 5 games. Their schedule is easier last year. I mean, they got to play Hawaii. They play Hawaii again, obviously. They barely beat Elon. You know who played for Elon, Dylan? Shane Gillis. Like, it's Elon football.
Carter, is this an SEC preview podcast or an SEC recap? What year are we talking about here?
But that's what I'm saying. They return a lot of their guys. They have the same quarterbacks. They lose their starting running back from last year. They have a freshman running back coming in. I'm not going to sit here and say they're going to go 1-11 or they're going to go 6-6. Like, I'd say 3-9, 4-8 at best. And the thing is, they gotta play at Wake. Like, Wake is never an easy game.
We'll start the season off with a guarantee. I guarantee you that they have 4 more wins by the time October rolls around. By the time October 1st comes, they have 4 wins.
You know what would be the funniest part? Is if they beat Kentucky.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no.
They beat Kentucky.
Yeah. I bet they'll beat Hawaii. They'll beat whoever AAMU is. Someone, Alabama A&M probably.
That sounds right.
Alabama A&M. I don't think that they'll beat Wake. They'll beat UNLV. Poor UNLV. They'll be coming off a butt whooping from Michigan by that point. And then I think they beat Kentucky.
Oh,
and that's your 4.
Please. Devin Leary might be out for the season by then. So if that's the case, then sure. But
that's the thing, though. Vandy's defense is still going to be bad. It's not going to be good, but I don't think that's going to matter against Kentucky.
You know what I love about this pick, though, is when you have these win totals. I had Duke last year over 2.5 wins. When you have these low win totals, after week 2, you're like, all right, we're 2-0. Only need to win 2 out of 10 remaining games. Like, every week you're like, this could cash before middle of September.
And didn't they end up winning like 7 games last year? Like, I mean, it was
Duke.
Yeah,
9-4, baby.
They were good.
I was going to say that it was a coast. That's what we're. Well, I don't know if we're looking at 9 wins for Vanderbilt, but that's the kind of thing I want to jump on. I want to. Vanderbilt's going to be bad. Well, no, they're not. They're going to win 4 games in 6 weeks.
That's how Kansas was too. Wasn't Kansas at like 3.5 last year? And then you saw what they did. They started off 6-0, I think. So,
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't hate it. I don't think I'm gonna bet Vandy though.
Okay, maybe you missed the part where I guaranteed that it hits before October's here.
Carter, do you not like free money? Dylan's giving out free money.
Should I ride with Dylan? Should I ride with Dylan Vandy?
I'll ride Vandy.
I can't believe we're gonna be a Vanderbilt podcast. Go Commodores.
They're not gonna have a stadium, so does that play into it?
I'm going to Nashville in a couple weeks. I'll talk some sense into them.
All right.
Get to the construction site. Yeah. Tell them what's up.
Let us know what they say. There's a lot of teams, like going back to just the SEC as a whole, there's a lot of teams in the SEC that are just like really solid. It's never an easy game. The Ole Misses of the world. Auburn, we don't know what Auburn's going to be, but they're always going to be a painful one. South Carolina, right when you think you have them, you don't. Arkansas, their run game is insane. Their pass game stinks. The thing, real quick on Arkansas, I think Sam Pittman, their coach, is just Jeff Fisher, like 2.0, where they went 7-6 last year, and they're going to go 7-6 this year again. It's going to be the exact same record, no improvement, and I think it's going to be the exact same thing for them.
If you want to take a sneaky long shot, since we're talking middle of the pack here, what about Ole Miss to win the division? If you're looking at them right now,
20-1.
I mean, it could be Jackson Dart, but also it could be Spencer Sanders, who we watched a lot of Oklahoma State last year. He damn near put him in the college football playoff. Spencer Sanders is a good quarterback. They're returning Quinshon Judkins as the running back last year, 1,500 yards, 16 scores. They're getting Carter's Meep UTSA lead receiver in. He had 1,100 yards and 15 scores last year, and Zachary Franklin. A lot of transfers on defense. That's kind of a wild card for me. Like, I don't know if I'm comfortable betting the win total with Ole Miss, but if you want to put $10 on them to win the SEC West, yeah, there's worse things you can do with $10.
I mean, they went 8-5 last year. The thing is, their defense is really bad, but
yeah, fair.
I mean, you run through the schedule, 3 gimmies at the start.
They would have to beat Alabama for that bet to cash, honestly.
For that, or LSU.
Yeah. I just think there's worse things you can do with $10. Maybe don't order a pizza on one of these game days. I don't know.
There you go. That's smart money. That's living your rich life.
Thank you.
I'll watch a Netflix documentary on that.
Any thoughts on Ole Miss?
I don't hate Ole Miss because I also like Lane Kiffin a lot. I just don't know if I can trust this defense. But like you mentioned, like they have one of the best Like they have it's a good problem to have where you have Jackson Dart and Spencer Sanders as your quarterbacks. I just don't understand why both of those guys would agree to go there if they knew that was going to be the quarterback battle.
Well, Spencer Sanders is a grad transfer, so I guess it'll be his last year of college football. That's just a little surprising. He wouldn't go somewhere where he can win actually have the job guaranteed.
Yeah, and Dart came from USC. So
yeah.
It's kind of interesting there. I don't hate Ole Miss, though. I think I'm going to stay away.
Real quick, they were 8-1 in games last year when they had more than 4.5 yards per carry. So they're returning a star running back in Judkins. I think they can make some noise.
All right, let's close here. Give us who you're taking on your win totals, and then any other bets or whatever you have. So Connor, you go first.
You want to do like a little popcorn here, or you show me to give like all 4 of
mine? We'll do popcorn.
All right, popcorn. Let me start it off. Already talked about this in depth. Kentucky over 6.5 wins. I don't need to go into it too much. I think if Devin Leary stays healthy, they have a good chance to cash this number. Like I said before, potential 5-0 after the Florida game. I think they win 3 between Missouri, Mississippi State, South Carolina, Louisville. And they hit the transfer portal hard. A lot of question marks, but they were bad last year. So that means they could see a lot of improvement. So I like Kentucky over 6.5. Got some hate, and that's fine. I love it. I love the hate.
Dylan, go ahead.
Vandy over 3.5. We just talked about it. They're going to take some more risks, and I think that opens up some opportunities for them. If there was an option for them to get it by the time October rolls around, I would take that as well.
There's 2 teams we didn't mention at all today, and one
State.
of them, Mississippi State. I like Mississippi State. I'll get into that in a second, but I'm going to start off. I like Texas A&M.
Yeah.
This is the first year since Jimbo Fisher's been at Texas A&M where they aren't this preseason darling. Everyone's like, they're going to, you watch your first college game day on like week 1, and everybody's like, their hot take is Texas A&M is going to win the SEC. And they never do. They never get close. They're always the disappointment every single year. But this year they have no expectations coming in. Jimbo Fisher the seat's getting very warm down there in College Station. They ranked first in passing yards allowed. They return a lot of the defense. Their win total 7.5. Yes, they went 5-7 last year, but very easy non-conference schedule. Like I said, once again, they have to play Alabama at home. Their road games are not difficult at all. Besides LSU, they only play 3 road games this year. 3. Oh,
Carter, I love this pick.
At Miami, but also it doesn't matter. They're going to kill Miami. Miami fool me once, shame on me. Texas
Carter,
over 7.5.
I love this pick, Carter. 5-star running back coming in, Ruben Owens. I think he'll be a stud. They have 2 NFL starting offensive linemen, I believe. Center Bryce Foster, tight end Ruben Fothery. I didn't do a lot of watching of them, but from everything I've read, they're going to be studs.
I did.
They also got Tony Grimes. They also got Tony Grimes from Carolina, who I think is not very good, but I digress. I like the 7.5 here. I think there's a good chance they're pretty good this year. It's kind of a prove-it year. Like you said, no expectations on them. Let's just see what happens. Seats getting a little warm. It's time to put all the cards on the table.
A&M's that classic team. You never want them to have expectations on them, but the second nobody cares about them, they're going to come around and upset Bama.
One more quick point on them. They were 1-5 in games last year, decided by 6 or less. That's a coin flip. What if they go 5-1?
Yeah.
I'm just saying that is a big stat, I think.
And Hayes King was so bad.
Yeah.
Hayes King was so bad. All right, Connor, give us another one.
Yeah, so I like the A&M pick. My next pick is going to be – Dylan's not going to like this. Got Tennessee under 9.5 wins. And we went over it a little bit already. I could see them being upset by my darling Kentucky Wildcats or, like we just mentioned, A&M. I think there's a good chance Tennessee could lose to that A&M team. They probably lose to Alabama. They probably lose to Bama and Georgia also. That's 3 losses right there. That puts them at 9-3. That's the under. Milton's unproven. I don't know. I can't trust Tennessee this year. They might go 8-4, might go 9-3. I can't trust them to get 10.
But Jordan Rodgers said that Joe Milton's the best quarterback he's ever seen.
Oh, scratch that then. Delete that from the record.
He's not unproven. That's the thing.
Thoughts?
He was a starter.
Thoughts, Dylan?
He was a starter at Michigan.
And then he wasn't.
Whatever. Because he had Cade McNamara waiting. If you had Cade McNamara,
okay.
of course you're starting him over Joe Milton.
Is that true? Huh. Okay.
We'll talk about that in the Big Ten preview. But
All right.
I hear what you're saying. I guess I just don't agree, and that's that.
I don't think they're going to suck, but getting 10 wins is going to be tough for them. I'm betting the under here.
I am going to go LSU over 9.5. Just returning all the talent that they're returning. They really turned it on at the end of last year, and their defense surprisingly not that bad. I think they were. I had it pulled up. I lost it, but it really wasn't that bad in terms of what they were allowing, especially their pass defense. So I'll go LSU over 9.5.
I don't hate that. I think for them to hit that, I think they have to beat FSU week 1.
Yes. Yep.
I agree.
I don't know the exact spread on that game, but I think I would rather just take LSU to beat FSU.
Well, I also like that because I think they have a good chance of beating Bama also. Like, we talked about Bama's question marks earlier. There's a couple games on this LSU schedule where they could pull it off.
All right. The last one I have, I was kind of deciding between 2. I may take both. I'm going to go with Mississippi State over 6.5. I think Will Rogers is a fine quarterback. No, he's not the Heisman candidate. He's not this crazy good quarterback, but I know they don't have Mike Leach this year. Rest in peace. Will Rogers, they're not going to run an only pass offense. Will Rogers will take his first snaps under center. He won't be in the shotgun anymore. They're going to have a more balanced offense. I think it'll be better in the grand scheme of things for them. Get to run more play action, run game. I'm going to take Mississippi State over 6.5, and then I'm going to close out here with mine, and then you guys close off with yours, and we'll get out of here because we went over time a little bit. I have Florida under 5.5 wins. I think this team's going to be terrible, and I think Billy Napier is not going to be the coach at Florida after this season. Graham Mertz is not a good quarterback. He is their quarterback at Florida, the transfer from Wisconsin. He is very, very, very bad. And if you're not good in the Big Ten, how are you going to be good in the SEC? Very
more
simple
defense
math
in the
there.
Big Ten.
Oh, no.
Mertz is a McNamara. Mertz is not gonna. He's not gonna stun you. He's not gonna shock you and be great. He's not gonna be awful. He's just kind of there.
But they need the guy to be good. They need the guy to be great. And I don't see them going. I don't see them making a bowl game.
I agree with you. They need someone bigger than Graham.
And they got to start. They got to start at Utah week 1, ESPN game. That's a brutal way to start your season. At Utah is one of the hardest games in this country.
Dylan knows champions all too well, yeah.
Exactly.
All right, I'll run through. I got 2 left real quick. Well, we already went over. I have LSU to win the SEC West at plus 200. This is one I wanted to quickly ask about. I wrote down Missouri under 6.5 just because Eli Drinkwitz has gone 5-5, 6-6, 6-6. It's hard for me to find 7 wins. You guys kind of talked me out of it, so I think I'm going to stay off that right now. And then the last one I have. This is where we make the money here, guys. Long shot Heisman bet coming from this conference. You ready for this? Jace McClellan, Alabama running back, plus 8,000 on DraftKings to win the Heisman. Hear me out. Last 3 non-quarterback Heisman winners. Bama wide receiver Devonta Smith, 2020. Bama running back Derrick Henry, 2015. Bama running back Mark Ingram, 2009. If you're not a quarterback winning the Heisman, you're a Bama skill guy. He had 655 yards last year, 7 touchdowns, almost 6 yards a carry. Backed up Jahmyr Gibbs. Bama's going to rely heavily on the run game this year. There's too many questions at quarterback. He's going to get a lot of touches. He had 14 catches and 3 touchdowns last year as a backup out of the backfield. I don't think it's obviously not a lock. It's plus 8,000. Like I said, you can do worse than with $10 than that. I don't know if a 3-loss USC team gets Caleb Williams the Heisman. So
add that to my card.
I love Jace McClellan plus 8,000. There's my case.
And then last thing real quick, LSU's minus 2.5 against Florida State. We'll do a college football preview, but that's going to be an awesome game. That's a Sunday night game. That's Sunday night, week 1.
I hit a big, big under when they played each other last year and they missed that extra point. Anybody remember that game? Anybody?
Yes.
I'll round us out. I have a couple. I talked about Tennessee already a little bit. I'm going to take them to win the SEC East. Mississippi State over 6.5. Karter, I agree with you. I'm all in for a guy that can have an 80% completion rate in a game and throw for 210 yards. I'm all about that. Kentucky under 6.5. We talked about already.
Oh, come get me.
And I am going to take Joe Milton to win the Heisman 18-1.
Oh, it's only 18-1 now.
Well, it's went down. It's went down since I last saw, but he has the upside for it. Like I said, he's Hendon Hooker-esque. So, yeah, I'll take it.
All right. I like it. But that's it. SEC preview. That's it for you. We'll be back. Make sure to check out all the other conference previews. We're going to do ACC, Big 12, Big 10, and we're going to do the Pac-12 as well. I'm very excited for the Pac-12 one. I'll just let you know right now. Pac-12, I'm very, very high on the Pac-12.
I think there's going to be some
I can't
There's
wait
going to be
for
some
it
fireworks. There's going to be some fireworks on that episode. I can't wait to listen.
But anyhow, all right. Thank you for listening. Subscribe to the podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Connor_Sparrow, at Wilkerson A. Dillon, at Karter BA, at CarterCast on all social media. Subscribe to the YouTube, and we'll see y'all next time.